All right. Best for last, huh, Ari? Hell yeah. That's it? Is everybody in the building? There you go. Come on. Well, Charles, we've met before. It's a pleasure to meet you again. Lily, big
First
fan.
time.
When I heard you were the president of Solana Foundation, I was like, hell yeah. I got to meet this person. That's my chain right there. Anyways, all bias aside, maybe we can get a little a little round of introductions for each of you guys here. I'll start with you, Lily, and then Charles, and then I got some questions, ready for you guys.
Cool. I'm Lily. I've been doing the crypto thing for a while. Used to be a banker, consultant, all the boring stuff, also real jobs. Was building hospitals in China and then heard about this Bitcoin thing, and I thought probably a scam. Looked into it. I was like, not a scam. Didn't really understand what's going on here. But then as I got more into it, I thought it was so fascinating, so relevant, because as the world has become more digitized, this idea of, well, how do you actually have digital property rights, right? So I proposed this idea that you can actually have, through self-custody, have real property rights mathematically enforced. And then with programmability, it opened up this whole idea that you could have open finance systems, programmable money, and then this idea that wherever you have an internet connection, you have a bank account. And so that's what got me into it about 10 years ago. And fast forward a few years, I got involved in Solana about 3.5 years ago. And what got me into Solana was doing degen perp trading on chain and on FTX perps, let's be honest.
One of us.
So we're learning by doing, right? But then on a more serious note, what I was enthralled by, I was like, well, I don't have to wait 2 minutes to clear my degen perp trade, right? And that was pretty much what got me into Solana, actually. And I thought, well, if that whole vision is going to become true, then maybe that's going to happen on Solana because it actually delivers an experience that most of us can have the patience for, which not much patience at all.
I love that.
Hi everyone, Charles Guillemet, I'm CTO at Ledger. My background is cryptography and security. I'm interested in these topics since I'm 12. At this time I was hacking what could be hacked. I discovered Bitcoin in 2011. At this time a friend of mine was mining with his own computer and he was talking about Bitcoin like every day. So I studied the technology, and I was really interested by the technology, but I remember I told him something like, your thing is amazing from a technology standpoint, but there is no way this thing will be adopted. So I was obviously wrong. And I joined Ledger in 2017, so in blockchain scale, it's ages ago. And we created a lot of things, and now we are very happy to be here inaugurating the new offices.
Yeah, it's massive day for crypto in general. I mean, it's a big deal, right? 9th-floor offices in central Paris, pretty cool. Charles, I'll start with you. I mean, you've been in this for a long time. You said Bitcoin 2011. Didn't believe in it quite yet, but then you turned around and came back. I feel like that's like everybody's story, pretty much. So what was one you'd see success and one failure you've seen in blockchain so far?
I think the biggest success is that we can say today that this technology is passing the test of time. And that was not obvious at the beginning. Creating decentralized consensus, creating permissionless money, meaning that you don't have to ask the permission to anyone to use your money, to send it 24/7 without intermediaries. And it simply works. We have one Bitcoin block every 10 minutes, and now we have a full ecosystem with more than 2 trillion. It's a lot. I think it's a big success, and that was not obvious at the beginning, at least not for me.
And from a security standpoint, like what would you say is a big success in this industry?
Security is challenging. I come from the security world for a long time, and the problem we have to solve from a security standpoint in blockchain is unique, meaning that as a user, you have a complete power over your crypto, and blockchain are immutable. And this is a specific property. When you are hacked for your banking card, for instance, you go to your bank and you ask for this transaction to be reverted, and it's possible. When it comes to blockchain, it's not the case. Everything is immutable, and so the security problem is really more difficult. Also now we have more complex transaction on-chain. It's not only about receiving and sending Bitcoin. You are interacting directly with protocols where you will lend, bridge, borrow, plenty of complex things, but directly at the protocol level with your wallet. And this is also a big challenge. We have tools. Ledger is a pretty good tool for security. There are other interesting tools for security, but it remains a big challenge for the ecosystem.
I love that. Lily, similarly, like from your standpoint now, DGen background, working with Solana, like what for you is a success in blockchain and what's a failure?
Well, I think it's working, right?
Yeah.
There's, 200 million people, whether centralized or decentralized wallet, right? Use crypto, trade crypto. As you were talking about, I was like, this guy's $1 trillion man, don't mess up, otherwise we're all toast. But so that's obviously working. I think that what is working less well than what, when sometimes I go back and watch 2014 YouTube videos, and I think a lot of those ideas have yet to be built. So I don't know whether it's a long time or a short time. I think there's ways you could look at this and say, wow, it's happened really quickly and it's amazing, because essentially cryptocurrencies are a bit of a religion for a faithless generation. So that's really interesting. It's cultural, it's financial, it's technological, it's many things kind of all wrapped up in one. But then on the other hand, a lot of the original vision of blockchain, for a while it was only Bitcoin, has yet to come to fruition, right? So this idea that you'd have programmable money and you'd have, I think that's now starting. That's something that I'm really excited about in this, like in 2025. This idea that you can actually provide, financial rails, open finance to really anyone that can use a phone or use a computer. So I think that is probably on the cusp, right? But then I think some of the threats ahead it depends on why you're in crypto. If you believe in this original idea that you would have state-free money and that you would have individual sovereignty around one's wealth, and not just wealth, but then one's ability to interact with things that are scarce and of value in a digital context, right? Which is beyond even just money, right? That's data, that's potentially really any fungible form of scarcity. Then the way the world is going right now, people debate this every so often. Okay, so all the institutions are coming. Near term, we all like that because it helps bless the space even further when you have the Bitcoin ETF and you have BlackRock tokenizing BUIDL and whatever else. But then on the other hand, if this goes in the direction of CBDCs, because then the governments who own the banks anyways, either they own them directly or they regulate them, so they basically tell the banks what they want to do and not do, then maybe that actually just becomes yet another thing that starts off as being decentralized technology and then ends up being owned by the same people who own the present. So I think it could go either way. It's the only thing I see right now that is a scalable trend that has the chance of not going that way. AI, clearly, right? Democracy, clearly, right? Depends on whatever you define that as right now. And so to me, it's really the only scalable trends, $2 trillion worth, 200 million people, a religious fervor about it, that has the capability of sort of being counterbalancing trend.
So in this industry, right, that you're describing, how has Solana specifically been able to scale?
Yeah, so that has been a pretty fun story, and you only ever have a flashlight into the step right ahead of you, so it's easy to say in retrospect how that all happened, and I think it's still really early as well. So I think that in blockchain you've got to have kind of two sides of the equation. One is that the tech has to be there. You have to have differentiated tech, which is why I personally don't care about the 51st L2, right? I think it's really just a fundraising mechanism to soak up overallocated dollars to crypto VCs to help them deploy their fund to raise their next one and stack fees, right? I think that's basically what's happening with is like another day, another L2 that raised $20 million. I don't think it's differentiated technology. So you have to have differentiated technology. I would argue that Solana, I think is objectively true as differentiated technology. And then the other is that these crypto communities, they're not just a blockchain, they're not just sort of a decentralized dApp platform, technology platform, they're also these cities. And this is something that we have all felt and all realize about crypto. But because it's fundamentally a technological kind of advancement, a lot of us have, it took me a long time to even start to put some words around that, right? It's a culture, it's a community, it has a certain character to it. It's actually a little bit more like a digital city. And so then if you're trying to build a city, okay, that to me is a little bit more clarifying, because then how do you actually go build a city? It has to have a culture, it has to have an economy. You want to attract producers, call them developers, call them builders. And that to me is what kind of tied together a mental framework of how to think about actual growth. So you have to have both differentiated technology. Developers aren't going to stick around too long if it's not differentiated, but then also a real community of builders, because ultimately the more it's about the technology, the more it actually starts to become about the humans and the culture and the non-technical components of it. So that's been one way to kind of really invest in both, and then being community-led, right? I've been perhaps a little bit contrarian, thinking that a lot of folks have gone very heavy into enterprise sales types of efforts, and it's failed every single time, right? Okay, maybe not every single time, but
it's very B2B oriented.
A lot, yeah. Right? How did Polygon and Starbucks go? Sandeep has even been like, wow, that was, right, like that was top signal. Flow, NBA Top Shots, how did that go?
Ouch. That one hurt.
Well,
Top Shot.
just objectively, right? It's like kind of fun.
That's true, yeah.
You know, and it's interesting and it's fun, but then people focus too much on wallets, and they focus on these individual metrics, which are, you can't say that any one metric is irrelevant, but if the focus is really, in my mind, from the very beginning about building an on-chain economy, then an economy is not any one point. It's about the linkages in between all of these different parts of the value chain. So I feel like the way people have thought about growth is not seeing it as an on-chain economy, but seeing it as mapping onto crypto in so many different ways, a skeuomorphic way of looking at crypto in the same way that you would look at consumer internet growth. I'm going to look at clicks and views, single metrics, and the equivalent of that is monthly active wallets, or TVL, or any one of those, depending on what thing you're trying to do. And so that's all fine and good. That's a start. But then, how do you actually build an active economy around these things? And I think that is slightly related, but I actually think it's all these things are about sort of adjacent, somewhat alternative viewpoints that, in my mind, help clarify sort of how you actually compound growth over time, rather than optimizing, juicing one metric, and then, like everything in crypto, comes and goes, and then what do you do after the tide goes out?
One thing that's worth mentioning about scalability is, because we probably don't have this in mind, but blockchain are relatively slow, especially if you take into account Bitcoin or Ethereum. They are very slow. If you consider mass adoption for Bitcoin, like every single human use Bitcoin, they will be able to do 2 transactions in their lifetime. This is the scalability of Bitcoin. It's very, very slow. So we need to find solution to scale blockchain in general. And Solana is one of the design allowing to scale blockchain technology. And Ethereum has followed a different path with L2s and so on. We don't know yet what will be the winning design, but at the end, it's really important to have in mind that solving the scalability challenge is paramount. Otherwise, we don't go anywhere.
So how does security evolve in a world where we fully scale to the masses in crypto? Because security is boring, right? But Ledger makes security cool, right? Like, it's like, oh, you got the stacks, got Tony Fidel sat here. I'm keeping that chair. I'm gonna auction it. But it's like, you guys are trying to make, or you are making security cool and accessible. But in a world where we are trying to scale to billions of people, hundreds of billions of people, how does security evolve?
There are different challenges in security, and it's a full chain. We have to keep this in mind. When it's about Bitcoin, again, it's pretty simple. The blockchain is relatively low. The number of things you can do with Bitcoin is also small. You simply send X amount of Bitcoin to this specific address, and the fees are that, and that's it. when you start to interact with L2, trying to bridge some USDC to another L2, and then interact with Aave to do lending, it becomes more complex. And in this security chain, it's really more difficult. And as a user, what you would like to do is to have an intent and to be sure that when you consent for this specific intent, what will be executed at the end on-chain is what you intended to do. And when you think about that, it's not that simple, because all blockchains are different, because you have different risks. First of all, you have the risk of losing your seed. What happens if an attacker gets an access to your seed? You lose your money. It's pretty bad. And you also have the problem of being sure as a user that you are consenting for a transaction that you intended to do. And from a wallet manufacturer for Ledger in particular, it's not that easy to make sure that the intent is very clear for the user, because nothing is standardized. And we are working on this. We have a work stream called Clear Sign All the Things that consists in standardizing the way we can decode a transaction on the device. And then you also have a risk at the blockchain itself. If the smart contract, if the chain, if the Aave pool is not secure, you have plenty of these risks. And as a wallet manufacturer, you would like to provide the user with all these risks, all these things in mind in order for the user to decide if he wants to consent this transaction. So the problem to solve is not that easy.
Yeah, no, that's very true. So on the topic of scaling, scalability, let's talk about this other buzzword that we loved in 21, onboarding. Let's talk about meme coins. I'm just kidding. But how do we, so as a DGen side, me said DGen perps, meme coins, Solana, it just goes hand in hand. So how do we Lily scale? How do we onboard? How do we get people interested and hooked into this space? But also, how do we get them to stay? Because a lot of them left 22, 23. They're coming back now. That's for sure. They'll be back even more in 25. But how do we keep them after that?
Well, there's always been speculation, and that's what most of the people do. 200 million people. That's what most people are doing, and usually in centralized exchanges as well. So there's every cycle, there's a speculative loop that brings in people to come speculate. And then the idea is, how do you keep people? Well, there's got to be something useful. And what is that useful thing going to be? I think that it's always been about global finance and open finance. And I think it will continue to be about open finance, not only in the ways that we think about financial markets today, but then it's also about the ability to financialize new types of assets. So things like prediction markets, so Polymarket's been pretty hot because of the election, tons of volume. That's the type of thing that doesn't exist, can't exist, doesn't exist in the more traditional financial world, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be more things like that where you take initially speculation in purely crypto assets that's going to start to migrate into new forms of speculation. In a way, Polymarket is speculation around governance. It's one step away from having financialized governance markets. And once you have financialized governance markets, then you've actually started to create new financial products that are global in nature. Anyone can log in with a wallet, and anyone can participate, and you could create, a betting market over so many different things. Like Futarchy right now is a trend in financialized governance. So I think that that's one new vector and kind of new crypto-only area where kind of betting starts to get into things that are not actually only about speculation. And I'm thankful for that because we do have a lot of governance tokens that don't govern anything in this industry.
Yeah, no.
Sure.
So
There's
that's
a little too
one.
many.
And then on the other end, there's the kind of boring thing, which is really just payments. But I don't actually find payments to be boring at all. I think they're really exciting. Payments and stablecoins, because when you introduce composability on top of that, you have this asset, a digital dollar, that at least for now, even with $32 trillion of debt, everyone still wants, right? And what's then fun about that is you can start to create new financial experiences for people's everyday life, perhaps, with stablecoins, with programmability, where you start to take payments and savings, investments, and lend, borrows, and all this on-chain type of economic activity, and be able to offer new products to people that don't even have access to a dollar to start with, much less on-chain credit, much less credit cards backed in stable coins. So that is, I actually think, a very exciting evolution of the boring world, so-called boring world that's happening right now.
I love that. Big fan of prediction markets myself. I'm pretty sure we're allow listing every single person in here to our own today. So it's pretty cool. So similar question for you is like, how do we drive this adoption to blockchain forward? How do we accelerate that?
I think there is still a UX challenge. When you think about it, now there are plenty of geeks, nerds in our ecosystem, degens, and for us it's very easy because we are used to that. But when you think about mass adoption, when I think about my mother, she doesn't understand all of this, and she doesn't want, because what are these hexadecimal string? What do I do with my 24 words? What are these 24 words, by the way? All of these are technical challenges that makes the UX difficult, and we need to think about solution to ease this user experience. Otherwise, the mass adoption won't ever happen. So the simple example are very telling, because what do you do with these 24 words? And this is why we are creating new product, including Ledger Recover, which created some drama, let's say. And now everyone knows about Ledger Recover, and it's a good product.
There's no bad press.
But buzz is still buzz at the end. But now I think everyone understood that it's an interesting product. And yeah, I think there's UX challenge must be solved. Also, there are now new way to onboard new user when it comes to like a simple wallet for pocket money, for instance. Account abstraction is a very good idea for onboarding a new user without even knowing there was a blockchain behind. I see more and more product where like some companies try to build a Revolut type of experience on DeFi, but you don't even know there was a blockchain behind. I'm not sure this is the good trade-off, but we are now in this pivoting point where we are trying to, in terms of technology, I think we understand well the technology. We know what we can do with it. We know what we can build in terms of experience, in terms of financial product. All of this, I think we understand better what we can do with blockchain technology. And now we can focus on the user experience. And there will be plenty of trials, and I think we will find the good balance to make this mass adoption possible.
Love that. So in the end, like, I was gonna ask what's a big win for each of you guys before we take off. Like, to me, like, it sounds like this building is a big win for Ledger into mass adoption and onboarding. Ledger Recover is actually a win because people it's easy to use, etc. So you have multiple stacks, the branding that you're doing, Flex, everything. But for you, Lily, like, what do you want to leave us off on? Like, what's a big win for Solana that you think will, help?
What I joke that what I really care about is AOC. Assets on chain.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of the other AOC.
Where's your mind? Assets on chain, obviously.
Duh.
So for me, that's what I'm really excited about, because I think what this has always been about was, the Bitcoin white paper is peer-to-peer cash system. It's not digital gold. And so that was part of the original vision, and Bitcoin kind of decided not to do it. Okay, Bitcoin's doing just fine. But then the question is, who is going to do that? Do we think that vision is worthwhile? And if so, who's going to build that? So that is what I'm excited about. And I think that it takes a while to build, but that's what I'm excited about building. And really not just for Solana. I think we've all been in crypto for long enough that to me, it's really about sort of in service of the broader vision of what Bitcoin gave us. And so it's for Solana, but then it's also really for this kind of collective inspiration that I think brought us here.
I love that. Well, Lily, Charles, thank you so much for being here with us today. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.